This is our chicken run for this year. This is where we throw all of our kitchen scraps and pieces of vegetable, old broccoli plants, and all that kind of stuff for the chickens to turn into eggs and fertilizer. Last year, this was our chicken run. So at the beginning of this year, I put a gate on this one and closed the chickens out of here. It, as you can see now, is a garden. So this is just some buckwheat here on the end. I grew as a cover crop. It's about to be cut down and used as mulch for whatever I'm going to plant in here next. Maybe a fall crop of broccoli or something like that. But we started our garden out in this area 3 years ago when we moved out here. I basically just took some old round bales that were thrown out and rotting along the edge of the woods. I took the layers off and laid them down on top of the grass that was here. I also ran this, there's an old rectangular chicken tractor over there. I left chickens on this and rotated them over it and around what vegetables we had that first year. Let them fertilize it. But the idea is that this is kind of a low maintenance garden because I don't get out here very often, not as often as the garden that's next to the house. But so I wanted it to be a low maintenance system, and the Three Sisters garden is pretty much the original low maintenance system. So we've got sweet corn out here, and then at the base we have butternut squash planted to fill in around the feet of the corn, and in a few places at least we have some starting to get tassel there, or corn silk starting to get tassels up here. In a few places we have the beans starting to climb up the corn stalks. So that's the one area I sort of fell down on. This was when the corn was coming up, I also let pretty much a monoculture of this lamb's quarters come up, and it was probably knee high when I got back from a 2-week vacation, and it had sort of crowded out most of the beans that were planted. So that's something I'll remedy next time, but at least we have all Three Sisters in one place here. There are quite a few more, but this is sort of the best example. I, about a week ago, went through and chopped and dropped the lamb's quarters that was between the corn, just to mulch the weeds and let the corn try to take off and get the maximum amount of nutrients. Down here at this end, we have Jerusalem artichokes, or sunchokes. These are the red fuso variety. And interplanted along the side is some American groundnut that trails in here. Some dill in a few places from last year's garden. There's another bean. Try to help it trail up this corn. So the idea here is that this is really low maintenance. All I have done was basically come in here in the spring, build the gate to keep the chickens out of it, and then I went through with a broad fork and deeply tilled it, broke up the soil, and then I did till it with a regular tiller also, and then I planted the corn, and actually just had a volunteer crop of this lamb's quarters come up because I had allowed several of them to go to seed out here, because we eat lamb's quarters. Really, it's the middle of July, and this is growing like crazy, whereas something like spinach or lettuce would be having a real hard time or getting bitter this time of year. Lamb's quarters makes an easy green. I mix it in with kale and some other wild greens, and fry it in bacon grease or olive oil and sprinkle a little vinegar or salsa on top. So I did allow the weeds to kind of take over, but it's a useful weed. This, hopefully, the fact that this is enclosed will at least lessen the likelihood that our corn gets eaten by raccoons before it's ripe, although this is not exactly impenetrable. One slight difference that I made between this run and the new run is that this one is UV stable PVC. It's conduit. I had used these hoops in an old greenhouse at our previous house, so I repurposed them here to have this aerial netting on top because we don't clip our chickens' wings, or at least we forget a lot of the time. So over there I used metal conduit. This, over the winter, believe it or not, there was enough wet snow collecting on this netting that it collapsed this in and broke that rib. So probably replace that with a metal piece of conduit and probably use that in the future. But it was a good use for repurposing some old hoop house pieces. On the sides, these are just held on with these little conduit brackets, and of course these are red cedar posts. Some of these were railroad ties that were already here for an old fence. But yeah, that's our Victory Garden system. Next year the garden will be over there and the chickens will be back over here fertilizing things. Thanks. Bye.